So all this living in the country, it's been good for your mental health?
Oh, perfect, Sheldon. Yeah, I mean, my line, when I moved to Raglan, maybe 7 years ago, my line was always, I'm seeking to be de-stressed, not distressed. And, it's just such a wonderful, we're so lucky in New Zealand that these opportunities exist to live, in different environments and sample all that life has to offer.
Well, I mean, I think that you're a model of de-stressing and through your laughter yoga and your music and that sort of thing. I mean, your wellness has been sustained over these years? Yeah,
definitely. And I think, for myself, I kind of see it like a project, really. My aim is to introduce as many nurturing, nourishing, soul-boosting things into my life as I can, and keep building and keep adding to them, I think, I get bored quite easily, so I need to find, new things to kind of add into the toolbox. And I guess, like you say, it's kept me well, it's kept me living the good life, and, I'd really encourage anybody who's, anything that you've got that's creative, enjoyable, I mean, it's not rocket science, music, dance, singing, nature, sport. I mean, we know all this. We know these are the things that kind of keep us in that happier place.
Well, I mean, I've got a track of yours, music track here. It says nowhere to go, nothing to do, but that's not appropriate for you at all.
Well, that was a kind of Zen-like moment, actually. So another one of my big passions is yoga and meditation. And funnily enough, I wrote that in Australia. I'd just done a big recovery conference, and, it was quite intense, and the Aussies have got kind of a slightly different take on things than those Kiwis. And so I came out of that, and my kind of treat for doing it was to go off to an ashram, to one of these yoga places in the country, and have a few days there. And, of course, I went from this really intense, we were in Melbourne, so it's, big city life, and hopped on a bus and ended up in this kind of beautiful, forest area, and all of a sudden I had nowhere to go and nothing to do, and I almost ran, actually, Sheldon. It was just such a juxtaposition to where I'd been.
Right.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, it's kind of, when you live that adrenalised life, it's kind of hard to be in the country and, be away from it.
So was that the birth of this CD that I have in front of me and we'll play today, Nowhere to Go, Nothing to Do, but you didn't write all of those tracks while you were sitting among the blue gums, did you?
No, and in actual fact, that was... in many ways, that was kind of the real start of it. That was the real brave leap. So part of the reason for moving to Raglan from Auckland was to carve out a little bit of time and a little bit of energy. And I kept telling people, even if I go for a year and just do my first album, that will be enough. Because I think, like for many of us, I'd sat on that dream for, maybe 15, maybe even 20 years, and some of those songs are almost as old as that. And I just thought, I've got to do it. I've got to give myself the opportunity. And if that's all I do, then that's fine. I'll rest a happy man. But of course, as I'm sure you know, once you take a leap towards your dreams and your aspirations, then you seem to get rewarded with more opportunities to keep leaping.
So, you took that first leap. I guess you'd call it a leap of faith, would you?
Mm. Oh, definitely. Everyone thought I was, everyone thought I was going bananas again. So I've got a history of bipolar and depression and mania. And when I rang my parents and I said, I'm leaving Auckland, we're going to go and live on a farm, which, we're city folk. We come from Manchester. The idea of going on a farm is, almost ridiculous.
Well,
and
people in Manchester don't even know what a farm is, do they?
I know people who definitely don't know what a farm is. and I said, I'm doing this, and I'm going to go to India and study yoga for a few weeks. And I think my mum got really worried because the next thing, first of all, she was on the phone saying, that sounds great, Gareth. Is Claire there? So she wanted to talk to my partner to make sure I wasn't kind of getting on one.
Oh, right.
And then my dad showed up. Yeah, they kind of almost sent my dad over to make sure that, I wasn't on a slippery slope. Well, I think he got there and he's like, my God, he's cracked it.
Right.
He's sitting on a mountain playing his guitar. Where did we all go wrong?
So, did he go home or did he stay with you?
Yeah, no, he stuck around for a few weeks. And I mean, gosh, funnily enough, he nearly came to New Zealand at about the same age that I did. And it was only the birth of his children that he's like, okay, well, we'll just, we'll get through this part and then we'll maybe emigrate. I certainly remember playing psychiatric blues. And that certainly was written on a psychiatric ward back in the UK, back in Manchester and Sheffield were the two places that I served at Her Majesty's pleasure. And, a wonderful song. So I was playing the blues in the Smoko Lounge just to entertain myself, really. And, it's the kind of format everybody knows, Bow down, now, woke up this morning.
Yes.
So as soon as you start that, everyone's like, oh, yeah, we know this. And I would just play that riff and invite other people to join me. So I'd sing a verse, and then they'd sing about whatever was going on, whether it was the food or missing family or the heaviness of the drugs or whatever else. They'd just sing a line, and then we'd all sing together, and yeah, it was just such a wonderful coming together.
I remember you telling that story about your experiences in psychiatric hospitals in the UK, and I think we did that interview one Christmas because I think Christmas was, you'd come to New Zealand and Christmas had changed and you didn't have family here, and so it was quite a challenging time. Yeah,
it can be. It's quite an odd time. I think a lot of people from the UK who live here find it a little bit unsettling to be, putting up trees and cards when the sun's shining and you're down the beach swimming, and it's a really odd thing that we celebrate a winter festival in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, being in Golden Bay, even though we're on the sunshine sort of coast of New Zealand, I've really noticed the impact of the winter.
Give us a bit of a rundown on what you're doing. It sounds as though you're writing a book on mental health. What's all that about?
Yeah, so I've been writing blogs for maybe 4 or 5 years. So my day job, I work as a researcher, and I figured a few years ago I've probably easily written about 1 million words in research reports and technical reports, and I'd be lucky if 1% of those words have ever been truly read. So I figured, I've got this writing thing, so I'd start writing things that were a bit more personal and a bit more kind of speaking from the heart and making connections. And for a long time, I've been wanting to write my own book about mental health for individuals, communities, family far now, and also for, on a sort of systemic level for services. So my book is called Beyond Normal.
Yeah.
And it's really trying to tease out the idea that, this kind of fixation we have with getting people to a normal life, in my opinion, is kind of what's one of the biggest problems that we face collectively trying to address mental health. And we should really embrace our beyond normalness. That's the way forward. Have you got a definition of what beyond normal is? Well, I'm going back to the mathematical one. This was the kind of epiphany I had. Normal as a researcher, normal is a statistical term. So you find the middle ground between two different ends. So, for example, height. This is the analogy that I use in the book. You're a tall chap, aren't you, Sheldon? Yeah, pretty tall. So what height are you? Well, I only know it in the old measure, 6'2". Yeah, 6'2", exactly. So you are beyond normal. Okay. Well, I know that. You don't. I didn't need you to tell me that on air, I guess. And I'm 5'4", so I'm beyond normal as well, because the average height for a New Zealand male is about 5'10". So what that means is, we're kind of on a scale of height, we're beyond the norm. Right. But at no point do we ever look at each other and go, well, that's a problem. What we need to do, Sheldon, is get you to lose about 4 inches, and then you'll be normal. I've got to give those 4 inches to you, and then we both become normal. Exactly, yeah. So that's kind of where I started with. And I think when we look at our kind of, emotional or psychological or internal experiences, we look at things that are beyond the norm, in that, most people don't experience them, and we say, well, that's a bad thing, we should do something about that.
We should medicate that out of people.
Exactly. Whereas what I've found is all those things that, were difficult for me to experience and difficult for others were actually really powerful experiences that turn me into the person that I am. Things like anxiety and paranoia and delusions, they're tough. I know they're tough, but they're also really human experiences. And I think by saying that they're not normal and they should be, we kind of invalidate them.
Well, I guess those of us who've faced mental health challenges, I can only speak for myself, but I hope that I know a lot more about the values of compassion and composure and thinking of others and being caring and empathetic. And I'm not sure that would have happened if I hadn't had those mental health challenges.
Exactly. And I would probably guess that, your life is richer for that, and the people you encounter, their lives are richer for that.
Oh, I hope so. I think also that if I can reduce the dependence on pills, then my life is much more clearer and creative, and I think I'm able to think much better.
Definitely. Yeah, that was my experience as well. And, I'm not particularly anti-medication. I think it has a place, and, I've certainly had benefits from it. But I think it's a starting point. And I think one of the difficulties we have is that we see it as the solution or a fix. And all it can ever really give you is a little bit of a window of opportunity to really grow and express yourself.
Right.
And, we see that window come and go, and then we say, well, the pills don't even work. But that's not their purpose.
So let's talk about that window of opportunity. I mean, have you experienced that window of opportunity? And if you have, what did you do with it? I mean, did you go off to Raglan and sit on a mountain?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess my windows came when I was back in the UK, and I think, what did I do with them? Gosh, that's a really good question, because part of what I want to do with Beyond Normal is tell a little bit of my story. And funnily enough, that's the place that, I've written a lot of words, but that's the place that I get often stuck, because it was such a dark time, it was such a low time. And certainly when, one of the tales I tell is, when I went to the doctors, my mum made me an appointment. I went and saw our local GP, and, I think I'd started the sentence, I don't know what's wrong with me, I just feel like I can't go on. And I'd barely got through that sentence, and he'd swiveled in his chair and was writing out his prescription. And at the time, this was back in the 90s, there was a big hoo-ha about Prozac, and I think the book Prozac Nation had just come out, and everybody, it seems, was being prescribed it. I thought to myself, just don't be Prozac. If it's not Prozac, then I'm not depressed. I haven't failed. All will be well. Just don't be Prozac. And so he gave me the script, and I wandered over to the chemist, cashed in the script, and they gave you, they give you the little brown bag.
All right.
The little paper bag. The only other place that I know that does that is pornography shops.
Right.
That's the level of shame and taboo that we have around this thing. So I walked out with my little paper bag, and I thought, okay, let's just see what it is. I'll take the first one, and we'll just see if things get better. And I ripped open the paper bag, and I saw that the word began with F. I was like, well, it's not Prozac. It's not Prozac. And for the first time in weeks, I felt really light and just, there's hope, and it's going to be okay. And of course, the word that it was spelling was fluoxetine.
Right.
Which is the chemical name for Prozac.
Right. I guess once you realised that you were prescribed Prozac, all that hope and that lightness, disappeared?
Oh, within a second, I was. Not only was I back to square one, I was kind of back to -1, because now I'd just been told, without being told, that I was depressed. I needed antidepressants, and at the time, that felt like a massive failure. But really curiously, what I also recognised is that for a brief second there, I had hope. I had a belief that things were going to be all right because I saw the word began with F.
Right.
And I almost burst out into laughter on the street because I was like, well, it's in you. This little light, this little desire to be a happy person is within you.
You've come an incredible long way where you've just mentioned your goals of wanting to generate connection and generate joy and happiness. I mean, that's a commendable road to recovery.
Yeah, I think I often forget I'm one of these characters who kind of, keeps setting goals further and further away, and so I often forget how far I've come. So it is nice to be reminded of that. And what I'd really encourage people. When you look back on those tracks that we recorded in the radio show, at that time, Sheldon, I was a nervous wreck. I was, so scared of sharing who I was, so terrified that people would judge me or not love me, or just really frightened, and it was Johnny Madison, actually, our mutual friend Johnny, who happened to hear me play guitar, and he's like, right, that's it, you've got to get this out. And I think anybody who's kind of sitting there with just knowing that, they've got a happier version of themselves inside, just keep chugging away at it. Just every single day, just find something that, can get you closer to it. And if you can't, just let the day be what it is. Not every day do I feel productive and really on message. Some days, I go, okay, it's not happening today, so I'll just ride this one out and we'll start again tomorrow.
Yeah, but, how have you accessed that greater happiness and joy?
Well, that will be in my forthcoming book.
Right, so we can't ask that question.
But, what's really funny, what I've found, we mentioned the laughter yoga earlier on. What I've found is we don't need to be taught how to be happy. We need to remember how to be happy. And so whenever I do performances, I've done workshops, I've done theatre plays, like stand-up comedy things, done laughter yoga, whatever it is, or the writing, all I'm really trying to do is to help you remember your own happiness. Singing, dancing, laughing, being in nature, moving your body. There's all sorts of really, really obvious things that we avoid to do, and a lot of them are either cheap or free. That's the beauty of it. You don't particularly need to invest huge sums. No. I think it is helpful to find someone who can show you that path.
Well, I can recall you showing that path at a West Auckland workshop. I can't recall, it was one of the West Auckland groups that was running that, and it looked as though it was going to have the same sort of rigid approach with people speaking out loud, and I think you were going to, well, in fact, you played some music, but I recall you saying that you just felt that the atmosphere was right for some laughter yoga, and you transformed that workshop into a vibrant, creative, energetic conference, and it just went from there. And,
that was brilliant. That was a shared vision out of Kelston.
Yep.
And I wasn't booked to speak. I think I was going to do some songs. I think I had about a 10-minute slot, and somebody couldn't make it. And at the last minute, Johnny Ciozzi, another good friend of ours, just kind of threw me under the bus and said, right, you're on and you've got 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I'll go and prepare something. And I think I got a piece of paper and written, speech or something at the top of it. And they said, no, you have to go on now. So I had nothing prepared. And I tell you, that particular event was the greatest testament to, 90% of life is showing up. Same as this interview, there's no preparation. You just show up and you give what you've got on that day. And I think when you do that, there's some real magic that happens because you kind of respond to the moment rather than what you think the moment should be.
Right, and there's a degree of spontaneity around it, isn't there?
Of course, yeah. Well, like you said at the start, you're flying by the seat of your pants. So that's been an incredible journey. I've been all around the country doing laughter workshops and presentations. And I've now got this new idea of, because one thing I've noticed is for people who are, I mean, whatever label you like, shy or introverted or inward-looking, they have a really profound experience with laughter yoga because they don't often get opportunities to be raucous in a way that feels good to them because they're not extroverts. So I've got an idea for a thing called Quiet Club. So it's a club for people who wouldn't join clubs.
Right.
And, so bringing people together who possibly, particularly having lived rurally for a few years now, there's a great potential for isolation and loneliness. And I think even in the big cities we know that, that can be the loneliest place of all. And yet we're all yearning for this connection. So I'd like to do something a little bit more grassroots, a little bit more community-focused. The first base really is to say, well, this is how I'm feeling. This is genuinely where I'm at, and it's a distressing place, and it's it's not a great place to be, because once you accept it, then you can say, okay, so now I want something different, and then it's all about finding the things. For me, anyway, it's finding the things that make you tick, and experimenting, and learning how to fail really quickly and really joyfully. I'm working on a new album called Rock and Soul. So this will be, I've got a lot of sort of interesting blues and rock. So this is going to be kind of a good old-fashioned rock and roll album.
That sounds like me. Please let us know when you've got that on the internet. Well, how do people access that EP, the one that you did in summer?
Yeah, okay. So all the music is available on Gareth-Edwards.com. So Gareth Edwards with a hyphen in the middle. .com. Yeah. And there's a free album there on the website. Anyone can get there and you can choose which album you like. So there's the one you've been playing. I've got a second album that I did a few years later called Augmented Reality. And so Psychiatric Blues is on that one, for example. And then, I've got this new EP.
You mentioned the self-help books. Is that part of the major book that you're writing, or have you already published some self-help material? Yeah, so I'm going to include a self-help focus to Beyond Normal, and I've also got a few kind of smaller books in mind, possibly like online courses as well. One of them's on happiness. Some of the tricks that I've learned over the years of how to, improve your happiness and well-being. And I've published one. I started with, they say, write about what you know. So I published a book called Working in Your Pajamas. Right.
Which is, it's kind of my experience of being a freelance researcher.
Well, I hope that gratitude is part of happiness, because I think we've got a thing called the happiness experiment, which has been developed by a woman who's now working for the consumer organisation.
That's right,
Changing Minds.
If you're looking for the quickest route to happiness, gratitude is absolutely it. It doesn't take a second to shift your mood. As soon as you realise that you're grateful for something, you come out of a place of sadness. Yeah.
Well, I think the happiness experiment suggests us writing down 3 things at the end of a day that we can be grateful for.
And that's a practice that I started many years ago and still do.
Wonderful.
My trick is to do it on the way to the bathroom in the morning.
Right. Okay. Have you got a long walk from your bedroom to your bathroom?
No, but the way you do it is your first foot you say thank, the second foot you say you. So you can't move until you found something to say thank you to each time.
Right.
So you're busting for the loo, but you've got to be like, oh, thank you for the bed, and thank you for the house, and thank you for the PJs,
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's a wonderful place to leave our interview. Thank you, Gareth, for being so spontaneously available.